Hello, entrepreneurs, artists, and creators. This is Dave with Founder Dojo. And hey, I want to talk to you about a pretty important concept that came to my attention today. And it has to do with controlling your emotions and transcending fear and anger. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. I had some realizations on this topic, some insights to share, and so I wanted to share it with everyone. So I recently came across this coach, a coach that specializes on men's health. She has a lot of male clients that she helps get through things, like divorce, blocks in their career and their business. She tends to focus on, my understanding, small business owners, entrepreneurs kind of thing. And she's really great. Like, I was completely captivated by her. I came across her on Instagram about a week ago. And I mean, obviously she's beautiful. So, as a single guy that immediately got my attention. But more than that, one of her Instagram, short videos, she has tremendous empathy for men. And it just blew me away to see this beautiful woman with empathy for men. And man, we don't see that. We don't see that much on YouTube or anywhere else. And obviously she's very successful in her business, and it makes sense, and I can see why. So I started learning about her a little bit more and digging into her content, and it's really interesting. And if you are a man and you struggle with issues of accomplishing what you want to accomplish, issues in your marriage, issues in dealing with other people, I highly recommend you check her out at EliseMichaels.com. Anyway, I wanted to just touch briefly on one of her frameworks that she uses, which is a really good framework, but it kind of sparked some other ideas for me. So she uses this framework of, how to control your emotions. So as men, we are, primal beings. We have things like anger and aggression, and particularly in my past marriage, I was married in a 22-year relationship and went through divorce, and that marriage officially ended about 8 years ago. So I've had some distance from that. But definitely there were times where I just lost my shit in my marriage. I just get so angry about whatever. I can't even remember, thinking back of it, an example, because I'm just not in that place anymore. But anyway, this is a helpful framework. How do you stop yourself from becoming Hulk and become more Bruce Banner? And so you can dig into that. And basically her goal is to kind of get control of your emotions by controlling your body, getting in your body, doing some breath work and other things, and just try to reach a more stoic state. And I can see how this would really be helpful for some guys in certain situations. When I looked at it, it didn't really resonate with me because I'm just not in that space anymore. I don't get angry very much at all. And that got me thinking, that's interesting. Why don't I get angry anymore? Maybe it's because I'm not married. It could just be as simple as that. I'm not married, so I don't get angry. But I think it's more than that. I came up with an alternative to to breath work and try to control your anger. I came up with an alternative way to let that energy flow and not try to block it. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit. So when you think about anger, I think in the framework of the Hulk, anger is perceived as a negative thing. I think in her framework, you don't want to get angry, you don't want to blow your top. But I don't think that's true. I don't think anger is an inherently negative thing. And this quote from Shakespeare comes to mind: "There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." And I really think that's true. It's up to us to decide what meaning to place on something, and everything that happens is inherently meaningless, not inherently good or bad. So Hulk is actually an interesting idea. If you look at the Hulk story and how he was portrayed in the Marvel movies, there's two different Hulks actually. There's the Hulk that's just out of control rage, but there's another Hulk that he can control. So he's angry in both cases, but he's got different motivations and a different frame behind that. And so if you dig into the Avengers movies, you'll see that. So is anger an inherently bad thing? Well, let's look at the story in the Bible, kind of infamous story about Jesus when he was at the market, and he noticed that the merchants were ripping off the people. They were cheating, fooling them, a bunch of rip-offs in the exchange rate, if I remember the story correctly. And Jesus got really angry. He thought, this is just not right. These are common people, hardworking folks, and the merchants were just ripping them off. So what did he do? Did he walk away? Did he sit down and meditate? No. He got some rope with his big carpenter forearms and hands and tied this rope into knots and went around and whipped all of the merchants that were cheating people. He was angry. He was pissed. And rightfully so. So I don't think anger is inherently a big thing. So I want to reframe positivity and negativity a little bit with respect to positive and negative beliefs, and this is going to be relevant in a second. But I don't think of positive beliefs or negative beliefs as inherently good or bad. I think another way to think of these beliefs and these emotions that we have is whether they create an expansion of your consciousness and of the synchronicity that's happening in your lives, or whether it's a contraction, it's creating a contraction. So an example of an expansion is you have a positive belief like, hey, I can do anything. I have an abundance of choices. So that's an expansion, right? I can look at these choices. I can look at those choices. If I have a setback, I look at, hey, this is a way to grow. This is an opportunity to learn, right? So that's an expansive effect that belief has. Freedom and inspiration are other examples. Like, this person really inspired me. At least really inspired me, actually, in a lot of ways. But that was a good thing. That was expansive. That led to other ideas and other experiences. And it was positive synchrony reinforcement, meaning when I got in that good feeling state, things were coming to me. In contrast, the contraction is a belief that causes you to be defensive, causes you to rationalize, causes you to reward, reject, justify, project on other people. You get feelings of fear and anxiety. And when you have those types of beliefs and those types of experiences, they actually inhibit the synchronicity. So instead of things coming toward you that are aligned with the things that you prefer, you're repelling. You're actually repelling the things that you want. And so that's obviously not intentional. So that's how I think about it, is if it's positive, it's not necessarily good. It's just expansive. It's what we think is good. But if it's negative, it's not necessarily bad either. It's just a contraction. It's causing the opposite effect. So whether the experience is positive or negative, or whether you feel good feelings or bad feelings, is directly a function of your belief system. So this is what I want to, this is the main point of this video. So when you have something flowing through you, I believe we're all eternal beings, and there is a source of all life, a source of all energy. You could think of the Force from Star Wars. It's a source that kind of connects us all and binds the whole universe together. It's also the source of life. It's our consciousness. And for sure, I know for a fact that source exists because I can feel source energy flowing through me when I have activated my positive beliefs, and I'm feeling love, and I'm feeling joy, and I'm feeling blissful. But this source energy is constantly flowing through us. And whether we receive that as positive or negative is a function of our belief system. So that same energy that flows through us, if we have a negative belief associated with it, we're going to experience fear and anxiety. If we have a positive belief that flows through us, we're going to experience love and oneness. So I want to share just like a really quick example. The other day I went to the parking lot to get my car, and I have a Tesla Model Y. And I was kind of in a ornery mood, I would say. I wasn't really on the positive feeling side. And I went up to my car. I remembered where I parked, and there was this guy like leaning on my car. He's like texting, and his ass is against my car. And I went up to him, and I was just like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, fine. He looks really kind of weird. And I said, why are you leaning on my car? And he's like, are you sure this is your car? I said, yeah, I'm sure it's my car. I parked here. This looks exactly like my car. And so I started getting kind of ornery. I was like, what is going on here? Is this guy, does he want to rob me? Does he want to mug me? Does he want to fight? So that started to kick in. I was like, this guy must be some kind of douchebag, asshole, whatever. So I'm preparing for battle, right? Preparing to have a street fight with this guy. And so he was saying some things, and I was just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to ignore him and get in my car and drive away. So I go to he was on the passenger side, I should say. And so I went to the driver's side. I opened the door, and I sat down to, like, drive away, just fucking peel out of there. And I realized this wasn't my car. It wasn't my car. And I was so embarrassed. I got up, I said, dude, I'm sorry. And he was so upset with me, like, he started, like, putting his, finger in my face, whatever. And I handled it, and it was fine. But I was mostly embarrassed. So I think it was because I had that negative state of mind that situation was interpreted as hostile, when in fact it wasn't hostile at all. This was just some dude sitting on his car texting, right? So it had nothing to do with what he did or what the circumstances were at the time. It had everything to do with the frame that I had, the energy that I was aligned with at the time, and the beliefs that I was carrying around with me. And so that's how it works. So source energy is flowing. And when you're feeling fear and anxiety, you have to know that the only reason that happens is you have negative beliefs that you're activating. You're running that energy through your negative beliefs. And of course, when you're feeling love and oneness, it's because of positive beliefs. And it has nothing to do with the intensity. You can be intensely passionate on either one of these sides. Like, I could be intensely passionate in a state of feeling love and oneness. And I have recently, in my communication with Elise, to be honest with you, like, I felt so connected with her because we have so much in common. I was just basically losing I was not able to control the good feelings that I was having. But on the same side, if you have negative beliefs, you're going to feel intensely angry, intensely anxious. You're going to want to go to battle as a man and turn into kind of the angry Hulk that Elise is talking about. Okay, so another way to think about this is an insight that I got from Bashar. He's a spiritual teacher. If you're interested in him, you can check him out at bashartv.com. But the way he describes it is essentially there's three minds that we have in our body. There's not just one mind. There's three minds, and he refers to it as the triad mind. So the triad mind includes the higher mind, which is essentially your inner being, God, source. That's part of us, right? Like, we are part of that mind, that higher mind. And then there's the head mind, what most people would call like the physical mind. And then the heart mind. A lot of people don't know this, but the heart is actually a type of mind. It gives off a specific frequency. It's capable of a lot of different things. And so when energy comes down from the higher mind, it resonates in the heart first. And we feel that as excitement. We feel that as, if we have positive beliefs activated, of course. That's how we feel it. And then we send that energy back up to our mind, which is what contains, I should say our head mind, which contains the physical, the belief system framework. And then out of that, it either becomes a positive emotion or a negative emotion. So this energy kind of like bounces around within us. But if we can control our beliefs, that actually controls what we take from the experience and whether we feel that as a positive emotion or negative emotion. So one of the ways you can figure out what beliefs you're activating in a situation is a really simple test, which is you can ask yourself if you're experiencing something where you're angry or you're frustrated or you're afraid or you're anxious, you can just ask yourself a very simple question. What must I believe is true about myself in order to feel this way? And this is a really good question to ask yourself if you're journaling or even just sit down. Like, what must I believe to be true in order to feel this way? So to go back to the example of the guy sitting on his car, which I thought was my car, what belief must be true? Well, I must believe that there are weird, aggressive guys out there sitting on people's cars, and that I can get into a scrape to defend myself against hostile people, right? When I'm out in public, right? So that must be a belief. If I didn't have that belief, I never would have occurred to me that's what this guy was doing. In terms of anxiety, other questions you can ask is like, why is this unsafe? This feels unsafe to me because, and what you do in this process is try to identify these beliefs and get rid of them. Get rid of the ones that don't make sense and that aren't serving you. And so there's a great technique for this called the belief tree process. You can check out Nick's book, Power Manifesting, giving him a free plug for his book. I have no association with Nick. I just know he's a great coach. I've been a student of his in the past, and he's an amazing guy. So check that out if you want to learn more about the belief tree process. So the final point is I think there's a alternative way to react when we get triggered as men. Yes, we could go into Hulk smash mode, but there's an alternative, and this is something that I discovered through the pain and suffering that I went through in my divorce, which is to get out of my own head and take a more spiritual path or a more Zen-based approach. So instead of hulking out, you can achieve a state of Zen, a state of oneness. And, what is Zen? What is the essence of Zen? I think one way to say it is we are kind of recognizing that we are eternal spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. So whatever happens in this physical life, the experience is real, but it's temporary, right? So the next time you're having a knockdown, drag out shouting match with your wife, in 10 years, like, is any of that going to matter? Whatever it is you're arguing about. What about in 100 years? What about infinite years? And it really doesn't matter. Like, what are you doing in this marriage anyway, right? Like, who are you? What do you want? Why are you here? There's a lot of interesting questions where things in the physical world, start to seem a lot smaller than they really are. And maybe you're just making this to be a big deal in your head. The other thing that Zen gives you is this kind of like detached perspective. So if you are in a toxic relationship and it takes something to step out of yourself and see that, see that you're being abused, see that you are experiencing things that your partner is doing that is not serving you, that is not helping you, that's not helping you expand. It's kind of causing you to retract or to compress. And so I think all of these kind of Zen practices, Buddhist practices, and ways of thinking are an alternative. And spirituality really saved my mental health. When I was going through my divorce, instead of trying to solve everything logically, I just kind of blissed out on it, and things went much better after that. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. If you guys want to continue this conversation in any more detail, feel free to leave a comment. You can also reach me on founderdojo.com, and hope to talk to you soon.